I welcome you all again. Today we have with us Dr. K. Sridhar, Principal Scientist Plant Breeding, ICAR IGFRI Southern Regional Research Station, Dharwad, Karnataka. Sir is going to deliberate on genetic resources and breeding for improvement of leucine. Sir, you are visible as well as audible, and your presentation is also visible. Sir, you may continue and start with the presentation.
Okay,
And
thank you.
right now we have about
Thank you.
61 people joined, and people are again joining.
Pardon, how many have joined?
62, and it would be more. It would be around 200 or more.
Okay, no problem. Shall I start then?
Sure, sure.
Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. So, thanks for my introduction. Yourself, Nayas, is it?
Majid, Majid.
Okay, Mouse. I have been given the topic genetic resources and breeding for improvement of lucerne. Myself, as introduced, Sridhar, working as principal scientist here in IGFRA regional station since 1995, and I have been working on different annual and perennial crops. I am concentrating on lucerne. For your kind information, the lucerne breeding work is going on at SRRS Dharwad Center in IGFRA. This is the main center for improvement of lucerne or work on lucerne. So I welcome you all the participants, and I am going to start my presentation. Pardon, I think you people are aware of fodder crops, first thing. Second thing, annual and perennial. Among the perennial, the lucerne, otherwise called alfalfa. Alfalfa, it's a word that means the best. Meaning of the word is the best. It's a Greek word. And the best of all is called alfalfa. So it was named as alfalfa or lucerne. Lucerne is, it was first traced in the lake in Switzerland called Luzerne Lake. It's a crater developed due to some asteroid from Earth, and there Luzerne Lake was there. From there, it started its cultivation. So it started becoming popular as lucerne. So let me start. Hope you all might have seen the crop lucerne. I would first like to show the crop. How does it look? It looks like methi. Methi is nothing but Trigonella phenumgricum, that is fenugreek, Trigonella genus, and this is a genus Medicago. It looks like methi. Methi we eat, lucerne animal eat. That's only the difference. If you do not know if it is a lucerne, then you will start feeling it as a methi. And we have even our regional station, once we have cut this lucerne, made pakoda, and we have given to our colleagues. They have eaten very well. So without knowing, you will be eating, no problem. So that's what the vegetative stage of lucerne looks like. This, it looks like methi. It is a very good nutritious fodder crop for livestock, and this is how it looks during flowering stage. So I started my presentation with the photographs to make you aware how does the crop look like. Most of might have seen anyway. So the importance, once I start the importance of this lucerne, As you all know, it's basically a perennial crop. Perennial means you can grow for more than anything more than 2. Multiples of 2 is perennial. So you can grow more than for 2 years. But there is a limit for this, not more than 3 years or 4 years, depending on the situation. So it gives green fodder around the year, and it gives about 90 to 110 tons or 120 tons, depending on the soil fertility, green fodder yield per hectare per year. So once you grow, it is taken as a winter crop here. In the month of October, it is sown. Once sown, exact 60 days, it comes to flowering. So once it comes to flowering, 2 months are gone. In the month of October, if you sow, it comes to harvest, first harvest in the month of December. After that, you get 10 cuts. So first year you get 10 cuts, second year you get more than 10 cuts, 11 to 12 cuts. Because once in a month or less than a month, 25 days to 30 days is the cutting interval, it comes for harvest. So this is basic information I would like to share with you people. Basically a perennial and deep-rooted crop grown almost round the year, and a very nutritious crop. Like it has about 16 to 25% crude protein and about 20 to 30% crude fiber. Very high palatability. Palatability means intake. Then it's also used as a feed in poultry and piggery because of its protein and vitamin A content, carotene. And wider adaptability. And being a legume, you know, it improves soil nitrogen, adds atmospheric nitrogen to soil and improves fertility. Being a deep-rooted crop, it has better access to nutrients, and then it provides a good hay and all before cut. Then in some countries there are varieties developed for grazing. Usually lucerne is for cut and carry system. Basically an intensively cultivated crop, irrigated crop. You need irrigation round the year. Without irrigation, you cannot advocate lucerne to anybody, any farmer. It needs irrigation, but it cannot tolerate waterlogging simultaneously. It needs more water, it cannot tolerate waterlogging. So soil should be highly permeable and should not have acidity. Acidic soils are not suitable. Alkaline or slightly alkaline soils are tolerant. It can tolerate. And if there is acidity, you can go for lime. A regular practice. Any soil scientist advocates. And as I told, it's a high water requiring crop, and it cannot tolerate high water table. Like there is a waterlogging, it cannot tolerate. And the major emphasis is on its yield potential. Of course, we see all these other parameters. First is yield, followed by quality, then followed by important parameters suitable to different dishes like drought tolerance, disease resistance, pest resistance, all these things. And if you see the area under lucerne, it is a third crop, important forage perennial crop after sorghum and bursing, and it occupies about 1 million hectare. I told 90 to 130 tons per hectare per year, varies, and mostly it is a crop of southern and southwestern, that is Deccan Plateau and western part of India. Of course, it is also grown in North India, but there are certain limitations which we will see in due course of our lecture. And so only in Gujarat, some places, why I have indicated, those are the places where this is grown local. And this crop, the local collections have got a lot of importance because they are called ecotypes. They get adapted to those ecological situations and evolved gradually and developed as ecotypes. And like Kutch and all, you have got a lot of salt tolerant types, the types grown there. As I told, let us see how did we come to know about this lucerne in India. Actually, about 490 BC, they have described lucerne as a feed for horses. Actually, it is basically given for horses in studs. Then these lucerne, if you see the origin, basically it is originated from Iran, that's well Persia, Iran and Afghanistan area, from and the mountains of the Caucasus, and from there it shifted to different parts of the world. So the basic chromosome number is 8, and diploids have got about 16. That is, the present day lucerne is derived from Querula, that is 2n is equal to 16, which is grown wild in Iran and Caucasus regions. And from there, the tetraploids have evolved and they are more vigorous naturally. You have more number of chromosomes, multiples, then more vigorous. So tetraploids more vigorous than diploids. And this cultivated alfalfa, they are 2n is 4x is equal to 32, and it is also called queen of forages because of its nutritious quality, because rich in protein and other minerals like phosphorus, calcium, zinc, and other important minerals. So most of this sativa, whatever is grown in India, they are all cultivated types and tetroid species, and other than that entire groups are wild types. However, we have got some diploids and also hexaploids in this lucerne. So as I was telling, you can observe the origin, center of origin. From there the arrows pointing towards different countries of the world, you can see here. So even to India. So you can see and appreciate the path of lucerne migration, how it got migrated and spread to different parts of the world from the western or these Gulf countries. Rather, you say near Mediterranean region between Caspian and Black Sea. If you see this Caucasus region, mountains you find, and that is the center of origin of lucerne. Just give a rough idea. I have put this picture. Then coming to the morphology, how does it look? As I told, very pleasant looking crop, and it has got purple flowers, Medicago sativa. And if you observe the leaf pattern, you can see like saw. It looks like saw. This is how a flowers, it's a flowering panicle is called raceme, where you find number of flowers on raceme, and each flower is an individual floret here. And this is how does a flowers in a raceme look like. Then once you come to know about lucerne, the other crop which is commonly grown in winters is a perennial forage crop is berseem. How do you differentiate when you are taken to a field of lucerne or berseem? How do you differentiate whether it is a lucerne or berseem? You can see the leaf pattern here, the berseem and lucerne, where the leaf is little bit oval. Here it is little bit entire and bigger in size, and root. And the very important, when you are given the seeds of this, usually I do ask the students, I keep the seeds for students and ask them to differentiate between lucerne and bursate, two petri plates if I keep. The very easy way to do is, this is reniform in shape. You can observe here, kidney shape. This one, it is little bit oval. It is not reniform in shape, little bit oval shape. And this, the color, it has got little bit darker, looks like almost methi. The shape is different, but looks like methi. It's not so. This is how you can differentiate. In fact, if you see practically, you would be able to appreciate better. However, the photographs are photographs. You would appreciate when you see them practically. So you can easily make out by seeing the shape of the seed as well as the color of the seed. So this is just to have a basic information. I have shared this particular slide with you people, so you can differentiate this. Now we have been talking what is its the family, subfamily, and tribe. As I told, Falcata, Querula, and Medicago sativa, you have diploid and tetraloid forms in this Medicago genus, and all are perennial. Perennial means 2 to 3 years you can keep once they are sown. Coming to the origin and systematics of this particular crop, we are supposed to know these things. When we see the origin systematics, don't see the text. I would just say it has got Medicago sativa and Medicago falcata complex. You can see here this falcata and sativa. This is sativa, this is falcata. So the diploids and tetraploids, even if see glutinosa, even falcata, this subspecies of Medicago sativa is the basic taxonomic relationship we have got with all other species. So Medicago sativa becomes the major complex, followed by this falcata. So this is how it evolved. As I told, the genus, it resembles most of this Trigonella and Melilotus. The Trigonella, that is the genus to which the methi belongs. That's what fenugreek. So it has resemblance to fenugreek. So the taxa constituting this complex, Medicago sativa falcata complex, exists within this complex, complete. Both diploids and tetraploids, all forms exist within this complex. You find both the ploidy levels here. So how do you differentiate falcata from sativa? This falcata has got sickle-shaped and also yellow flowers. Yellow flowers means it has got lot of flavonoids and carotenoids in petals. Whereas sativa has got purple flowers and totally coiled pods, 2 to 3 rounds coiled pods you can see. I would just show the picture. And it was found that probably the hybridization of the sativa and falcata might have contributed to the total cultivation of alba throughout the temperate zone. This complex hybridization might have given a lot of genetic variability for its adaptive traits and also offering a potential for adaptations to most of the climates elsewhere in the world. And one more thing we can see here, you can see this third point, that sativa falcata subspecies belong to primary gene pool. Primary gene pool means that gene pool which are easily crossable. Secondary means less easily crossable. Third, tertiary gene pool means they cannot be crossed. They have got a lot of barriers for interspecific hybridization. When you go for generic or intergeneric or interspecific, you have a lot of barriers. So these two species, interspecific species, are easily crossable. Moreover, they produce fertile and viable seeds. And they show coiled pods and variegated flowers. This is how we see when we go to the next slide. This is how the falcata does look, and this is how the sativa types look. Purple flowers and also yellow flowers. And this is what I was telling, coiling of pod, and you have now, this is what Artha Chandrakara, like half moon shape, or sickle shape, we say. This is Medicago falcata. Pods look like this, whereas sativa looks like this. So coming to, as I was telling, this glomerata, here we have seen in this figure, this glomerata, this glutinosa and falcata, these two are responsible, these two evolved from this glomerata subspecies. So only we would know this tetraploid form of glomerata and subspecies glutinosa is adapted to subalpine environments. It has got yellow flower in the beginning, later on it changes its color, and it has got lot of glandular hairs on stems and also coiled pods. So these features say that all these things have evolved from this Medicago sativa subspecies. So basically what we would like to see the ancestral record of the lucerne that shows this Medicago sativa subspecies and falcata complex is responsible for evolution of these tetraploids, different tetraploids. So this is what even the isozyme and morphological data have shown the evolutionary path that the sativa complex has got closely related species. Now coming to, we would like to know, and we are supposed to know, what are the three major types of alfalfas. That was what I talked so far, was about origin and systematics, that the taxonomical relationship and how they evolved, and how the present day common alfalfas have evolved. Now this present day common alfalfa is basically of Mediterranean region, and they are purple flowered and upright types. They vary in winter hardiness. These, most of the varieties developed in US, they belong to these three major types. One is common alfalfa, Chilean alfalfa, and Chile and Turkestan alfalfa. So the features, if you see, this is purple flower, and it has got lot of variability for winter hardiness. And this has got variability, they vary in cold tolerance. They are from Chile. Regional strains developed have got different levels of cold tolerance. And this Turkestan, as I told, that basically originated from there. Then they will also vary in winter hardiness from hardy to moderately hardy. Then the Flemish alfalfas, they are European alfalfas. They are from France and they are non-hardy. Coming to yellow flowered, that is what I told, is this one, falcata, and another one is purple. When you cross this falcata with sativa type, you get a variegated type. You can see the color of the flower with variegated. It's all variegated type. So they are called varias, subspecies varia. The progeny of this sativa and falcata, because they are easily crossable, they belong to primary gene pool and they produce viable and fertile seeds. So the seeds, what you get, the types you get in F1, the crossed one you get is this varia, that is variegated type. Coming to this, before we develop or go for cultivar development in lucerne, what we basically need to know in any crop is It's floral biology. Once you know floral biology, is it possible to manipulate with the existing floral biology to develop cultivars? Breeding methodology depends on floral biology. It is the important determining factor for development of breeding or for choice of breeding method, rather I would say. So what very important first thing what we have to remember in Lucerne is highly cross-pollinated crop. So when we talk of highly cross-pollinated crop, there is no control over pollinations. That is first thing. The second thing is it is not wind pollinated, rather it is entomophilous. Means insects play major role. Among the insects, if you want to specify, then you would say the bees are the major trippers. That means the visit of bee is a must for effective pollination and seed set in Lucerne. So the mechanism what is existing in this Lucerne is tripping. What does this tripping mean? The Papilionaceous corolla, how does it? It has one standard petal, two wing petals, and two keel petals. That is a typical Papilionaceous corolla. Inside the keel petals, you have the both androecium and gynoecium, both parts, male and female. So this androecium exists as 9+1, that is diadelphous status. And the style and stigma, they are simple, and it's a unifid stigma covered with waxy membrane, and the viability of pollen is 5 minutes. So the inside the keel petal, the androecium or the parts, the pollen grains are held in such a tension that as if a spring is folded and released, how does it react? How does it reflect? That is the mechanism, like it's an explosive action. Once this happens, only when there is a mechanical disturbance to that particular flower. That is possible only when an insect visits. That means only when the bee visits, then this tripping is effected, then pollination followed by seed set. So without tripping, the seed set will be very, very low, and sometimes it may be nil, as per my experience. So this is what I wanted to show you people, that how this tripping mechanism occurs. And most of the honeybees, you have got lot of honeybee species. Mellifera, honeybee, Apis dorsata, Apis mellifera, Apis serena, they don't contribute much to this tripping because they don't prefer this. The bees which are effective trippers are this leafcutter bee and other honeybees. Most of the wild bees, they trip 80% of this alpha pup. They are responsible for tripping. Leafcutter and alkali bees. So this is how it happens when it comes and lands on this, the keel petal, because of this mechanical disturbance or because of this landing, the pressure is applied on keel and it opens, and immediately as a spring is released like that, the pollen is ejected out, and this pollen will come and land on the backside of this. That is on the ventral side of this insect bee, and when it goes and lands on another flower, it affects pollination. This is what happens. I try to make the things clear with this particular picture. Hope it is clear. And this is how the keel petal, before tripping, how does it look? After tripping, how does it look? Once it is stripped, the pollen is ejected, and this is how the alkali bee, cutter bee, they are major pollinators in Lucerne or alfalfa. So this is what I did. Once again, I would like to clarify this. This is stripped flower. Once and this is visiting. Once it visits, it strips and ejects the pollen on the back in the ventral side of this insect, and in the next visit, it affects pollination. So once we know that, we come to know about the biology, floral biology. The next thing is, after knowing floral biology, how best we can use it for producing the hybrids or selfing or crossing, all the possibilities we see. To adopt, as I told, it's highly cross-pollinated crop. The selfing will not result in any seed unless until there are some bees present or some pollinators present. Then only you get some seed set. There is one more way to do it: mechanical tripping. Like we go and touch the flowers, just touch the racemes, so that you can easily see them in the field. When you go to the field, loosen field, walk along the field, like in rice, they say, you walk along the field or just pull the rope, you get the hybrid seeds and all because of pollination. Like that, when you walk along the field, that after entering the field, you have to disturb the racemes, so that you just touch it and leave it, so that it gets stripped and it results some kind of pollination. But it is practically impossible. It is not possible to get, and it's highly laborious, as we can realize it. So the best thing for selfing is like this. As I told, you have to keep a case, keep some bees, you get some seed set. The crossing, I have given how the crossing is done. Either you sterilize the pollen, or you go for two plants, just keep them which you would like to cross, both male and female selected plants, keep in a cage and leave some bees. So that will result in it. Then one more thing, as you know, there is self-incompatibility, there is self-sterility, all these things. Self-incompatibility, when it is there, in those cases, always the cross-pollinated is more preferred than self-pollinated pollen. So higher seed set you will get more with cross-pollination because that has got more ability and vigor to affect the seed set and also affect the pollination and result in seed set. So that is what I have highlighted here. Now, then before going to different breeding methods or breeding objectives, for what we are developing this particular cultivar or this particular crop cultivar, we can say in Lucerne what we are aiming at, we need some criteria for characters. Here, in any forage crops, one thumb rule you always remember, like any other crops, like commercial crops or field crops or pulses or cereals and other crops. Unlike them, here the main objective is for green vegetative biomass. So for that, what we want is height should be good, tall types we prefer, tillering should be there. Once you should have more region potential or ability. Then we should have earliness, so that you get more per day production and also number of cuts per year. And more of leafy. How it is decided? The very important indicator is this L leaf to stem ratio. Then have better persistence. Here persistence means, I will say, aggressive is different from persistent, and regeneration ability is also different from persistence. Persistence means you have put about 100 seeds in a. After 1 year, you see the mortality, and after 2 years, you see, after 3 years, you see. At the end of third year, if you see 90 plants surviving, it has more persistent. That means the survival ability of a particular genotype over a period of time is called persistence. That is more persistence. Like we say, consistent performance of batsmen in cricket. Like we say, we perseverance and consistent performance of a student in the class. Like that, we say here persistence. From 1st to 10th, 1st to 12th, how does a student perform will show his consistency or her consistency. Similarly, over a period of time, what is its ability to survive is called persistence. So there are some varieties developed even in alfalfa, like it is basically this lucerne is. Here I would like to just emphasize that it is for cut and carry system. Usually it is not a grazing type, unlike other crops, perennial rain-fed or range legumes. It is a cultivated legume, intensively cultivated and irrigated legume. It is what cut and carry system. So the persistence is important because it is not for pastures or meadows. So now the selection criteria should be for persistence. Then as usual, all other things and very important disease and pest like any other crop. And very important, I would like to say, is cold and drought hardy tolerance. Cold tolerance and drought hardy, they will be the types that are developed will be suitable for different diverse niches or situations because we have got diverse agroclimatic situations in our country. The type which is grown in Srinagar may not fit here in Dharwad, and the type which is grown in Dharwad may not fit in Rajasthan, and it may not fit in Northeast. So the situation what demands is, as you all know, again climate resilient is a buzzword, of course. We have to see local types and also local niches suitable and its adaptability. Based on this, we have to have our selection criteria. Of course, the quality is important. This is for different characters. When we talk of different characters you would like to, when you are selecting in the field, how do you select? How do you select these plants? So these are some of the important features. Like if you take dark green leaves, generally have high protein. And the types which are having more crown. Crown means the portion that is just below the or above the ground, near the ground, from where the root and shoot differentiates. That is the crown portion. That crown portion, the stronger the crown portion or the bulkier the crown portion, the more the regeneration protein. That is because that is the portion where non-structural carbohydrates are accumulated in a crop. The more the non-structural carbohydrates, the more the food reserve available and more the regeneration ability. So only we say here the crown is important. Then height of the plant, of course, that is more. Seed production is related to bees. So more the height, the taller the plant, the taller the attraction to bees, and taller the attraction and more the effective pollination, more seed. So these are some of the criteria we need to keep in mind when you go to field, and we have to observe these things. Coming to breeding mechanism, because it is basically highly cross-pollinated, tetraploid, having 4 copies of each genome, then more than 80% cross, as I told, it has got a lot of the range for sterility to complete fertility, self-incompatibility, and highly heterozygous. So with all these difficulties and with all these limitations, the best way, what breeding mechanism or breeding method we need to adopt depends on this, knowing this breeding mechanism. So we always go in cross-pollinated crop with population approach because simple. Self-pollinated crop, if you go on selfing, nothing will happen because there is no inbreeding depression. It is not going to be deleterious. It will not throw out any lethal effects. All these things you might have studied and you might be aware of. So when we are always keep in mind, my dear participants, that cross-pollinated crop, you have to go in a population approach, no individual approach. Because simple thing is we have to maintain that genetic equilibrium. The allelic and the gamete, the genic and genotypic frequencies should remain constant from generation to generation. That is Hardy-Weinberg law. That law should be maintained. That is natural population. That is possible only when there is random mating in the population. So when that is maintained, the population will be stable. There won't be inbreeding depression. So that is possible only when you have number of individuals. That is when you have a population approach. So the topic I was given was about genetic resources and breeding for improvement of lucerne improvement. So when we talk of genetic resources, we have depending on your priority and your objective, apart from yield and quality, what are the important characters we need to see, like for disease resistance, or for winter hardiness, or for deep rootedness, or for drought tolerance, or for grazing tolerance. So these are the different genetic resources we are having, important resources where we can use them for improvement of the improvement or development of the cultivars. So these genetic resources are available in different centers, at whether it is at national or international DPGR. Even in our institute, the modules, long-term storage module, medium storage module, we are maintaining these important genetic resources of lucerne for different traits. So this is one site where you get entire information, legume information system, not only alfalfa. You get groundnut, faba bean, even cowpea, everything, all legumes. You get the information about this. Here, you are able to see a Medicago genetic reports that also gives the complete information pertaining to Medicago genus. So a new century, a new communication. This is the site, Medicago genetic reports. This is available in this LIS, legume information. These are some of the sites, because it is not possible to cover each and everything within the scheduled given period or scheduled time. So these are some of the sites which I wanted to share with you people, so that you can further refer, the interested can refer and use in their research. So this, then coming to breeding methods, as usual, any you might have studied any plant breeding course. It starts from introduction, then comes selection, then come hybridization, then you get different advanced biotechnological or molecular approaches and all those things. Then you have different selection procedures like recurrent selection, then you have hybrids, then you have synthetics, composites, so many things. So these are some of the important things. The Ladakh strain, again, it's an introduction. It was introduced in USA from North India in 70s, and this was resistant to cold and bacteria. It has capacity renewing prolonged drought. This is the major resource in US for developing most of the cultivars. Coming to selection, you have natural selection. That is what I told, some ecotypes. They get ecotypes are evolved through natural selection. In natural selection, cross-pollinated crops have got better advantage over the self-pollinated crops, and among the cross-pollinated crops, again the ecotypes that is getting adapted to a particular niche or particular environment, and they get developed. Right? You get ecotypes in Ladakh. You get ecotypes in Leh. You get ecotypes in different parts of Srinagar. You get ecotypes in different parts of Gujarat. Like I told, Kutch variety. Kutch, that is grown only, that is a ecotype got adapted to. So you got under natural selection, you have ecotypes. Then artificial selection, then you have multiple multi-line varieties where you know the multi-line different desirable strains are mixed to form, the seeds are mixed to form, like for example Ranger Lucerne, it's a variety, it has got different strains, the proportion will vary. That's what multi-line varieties, they have come that concept. Then later, the most important thing, top cross, polycross, and double cross, so many things you might have learned. Come in Lucerne, the best thing is the polycross. That is only the thing which can help in developing some significant gain, with some significant gain genetically for development of a variety or a cultivar in Lucerne. Because it's highly cross-pollinated crop. Emasculation is laborious and very, very difficult. Getting crossed seed is again a problem because it is basically pollinated by insects. And you don't have any such male sterility system well developed like that of maize. So when these limitations are there, the best approach is population-based approach, that is development of either synthetics or composites. That is possible only with this polycross approach. This is the best method we can use. That is what the Lucerne is developed. This is how a procedure is done. Like polycross means nothing but if selected clones as a males, you will have some selected clones of use as a female, and they both will be planted together and allow open pollination, so that there is a random mating. Every chance that each individual has every chance of mating with the another individual. So from female plants you select you harvest the seed that will have a random mated the population. So that whatever you harvest from that female, that seed is called polycross seed. So that seed is again allowed to grow, and based on progeny testing, that means the male source is not known, the female source is known. That is called half seed populated. So we called half seed test or polycross test, the half seed progeny test, whatever it is. So the progeny is tested. Based on the progeny evaluation, then the original selected the clones you will take, again put them in a Latin square, allow them to random mate in under isolation, and from that whatever you develop, that becomes a synthetic. This is how the source nursery, you have selected clones, you allow them to random mate, get a polycross, grow progeny. From this, the original seed, based on the evaluation of this progeny, the original seed of the concern, the parents are taken from selected original clones, and they are bulk planted in a one fashion, and then they are allowed to random mate to produce a synthetic. Hope it is clear. And this is how, once again, to make it more clear, I have put it. You have a source population, you have a selected clones used, then you polycross the selected superior clones, then offspring is evaluated. Based on the evaluation of the offspring, the original clones will be planted, and they will be allowed to, because the progeny evaluation, though the progeny whichever is performing better, the concerned parent is taken and put in a crossing block to allow intercross, and random mating is done, open pollination under isolation, then you get this, how the synthetic, and you repeat the synthetic 2, synthetic 3, and develop a variety, synthetic cultivar. Coming to hybrid varieties, Then you may ask, are there any hybrids in Lucerne? Of course, there is one male sterility system reported in US, and based on that, two hybrids they were released. This is hybrid Force 400 and hybrid Force it is 4S wrongly spelled, I'm sorry, Force 420 wet. So this, but they did not pick up much. One or two hybrids were developed, they were having these features. Then coming to the markers and mapping. The very important thing here is how the mapping or marker results will be more practical in cultivar development programs, especially when we talk of Lucerne. The first thing is marker restrict introgression, where the QTL is taken. Again, it is identified with a marker. Then when it is linked with marker, it is allowed to backcross to elite cultivars. But here, if the QTL has a larger effect on phenotype, then introgression of whatever happened will be easily undertaken. Otherwise, as I told, it is a highly cross-pollinated crop. The limitation is you have to grow large number of individuals, or population size should be large to know this QTL effect. So when we talk of this, two important issues that comes to mind is major limitations is first is the identification of this prospective QTL, first impediment. Then after that, it becomes complex because it is a tetraploid. Then mapping in tetraploid and locating and tracing them is very difficult. Okay, even after detection, locating them precisely is again a difficult job. Once it is precisely located also, the precision will be low because when compared to diploids, in triploids, it is very, very difficult to handle this. So this introgression, we have to ensure that the markers used for introgression are linked with QTL becomes different because it is a highly cross-pollinated and also it is basically a tetraploid. The second impediment comes as a result of the first. It is a direct result of the first. As I told, backcrossing needs lot of individuals to be screened. Because it is a population approach, you need to grow large number of population, that is one. If you restrict the population, you will have this inbreeding depression. So to maintain that sufficient genetic variation and to avoid inbreeding depression, you need to grow large population and exactly pinpoint that this QTL is concerned this particular. So you cannot do many QTL. Many QTLs cannot be done. Before this, you arrive at that particular segregation ratio and say this is linked to this QTL. This is about what I told is about marker restrict introgression. Let us go to next. These are the major limitations for going to marker restrict selection. Again, identifying the markers linked to QTL, then use those markers for future. This is a very commonly envisaged thing. But because, again, most of the alfalfa breeding programs revolve around recurrent selection schemes, this marker restrict selection does not integrate well into those procedures. Because if it is, as I told, introgression approach works best if QTL effect is large enough. Unlike the other crops, where you in pure line you have per se performance, or in a hybrid also you can make out the two parents are known. But in synthetic populations, like where you want to develop a synthetics, as I told in my previous slide that about polycross, how we develop synthetic, in the populations, this becomes fixing this QTL becomes a very difficult job. So because of these things, we cannot even get significant results from this. Then comes the whole genome selection, where the phenotype is matched with the genotype at genome level. The markers are distributed, this QTL is wherever you don't have QTL knowledge sufficient, like a black box. It is like unlike MAS, it is a black box method where whole genome is genotyped, and that genome markers distributed throughout the genome are genotyped based on they are complemented with the phenotype. Then they are given some values like this breeding value or breeding value, whatever breeder value. Those values are across markers, they are added and see. Then each marker, based on that, the selection is done and individuals are selected, and how the whole genome selection is possible based on the net worth of these markers. Then come to genome sequencing. This is again, it's a reference genome. Whole genome is sequenced. Then after that genome, how it is useful. There is a lot of literature about the genome sequences. I have taken the latest one reference, where how it is useful is important for our improvement and also using as a genetic resource also. This genome research, reference genome research is important because it gives total chromosome level genome reference. At chromosome level it will give, and this was done in particular alfalfa, Zomo number 1 alfalfa cultivar. It's a tetraploid, and total population analysis of different germplasm also is done. Based on that, the data that is available with this genome sequences will help us to know the genome evolution and also different traits that are important with this. Like once you have a reference genome and if it is available with you, you can use those as a genetic resource for particular trait for the further improvement of the cultivars. Of course, this is another one, interspecific hybridization, and lot of work has been done in this different works compared to somatic hybrids, compared to with relevant to annuals, with relevant to weevil tolerance, with reference to perenniality and persistence, all these things, disease resistance, it is done. But what we did so far, so till now I have given the general view of total alfalfa breeding. What are the different approaches you have to use, how the pollination mechanism, what are the breeding methods, what are the different approaches we need to use to develop cultivars or improvement of Lucerne. Now, what we did in a few seconds, I would like to complete this my lecture at regional research station or at IGFRI institute level. What we did, I would say, here the priority area in ICR was the developing some Lucerne stem weevil tolerant types, because stem weevil is a major limiting factor for not cultivating or taking up Lucerne in North India, because Barsim is very popular in North but not in South, vice versa. Though Lucerne can grow, but there is a limitation for this stem weevil. So with that having in mind, we developed some Lucerne tolerant populations by crossing the Lucerne weevil tolerant lines with ruling varieties, popular varieties, And these populations now they have come up for a period of 10 years, 2008 or so we started work. Now we are going to contribute these lines or the developed populations to trials, national trials. Apart from that, we have done some work on drought tolerant types, and also some nutritional types were also isolated. Means we could get. Now we are going to give emphasis, as I told, drought tolerant, cold tolerance, and also with better yield and quality for different niches, agroecological systems or agroecological niches. Keeping that in view, we want to develop some polycross populations and evaluate them in different niches so that it meets or it will meet the requirement of those particular niches, like maybe arid, semi-arid, maybe temperate, maybe tropical, subtropical niches, different depending on the need. So among the for interspecific hybridization for weevil tolerance, we did this. Some Scutellata types were there. They were crossed. Interspecific hybridization I was talking about. Medicago sativa Scutellata. This is a popular variety, Rahuri, developed from NPKV Rahuri, Rahuri Lucerne 88. This was crossed as a female with Scutellata, which is a weevil tolerant species. And this is how we tried, and there was drying, two different types we got. First, stemmed seedling did not survive. Second one also started drying. Slowly we tried to rescue that. Callus has come later on. This callus also started drying, and we could not result. It could not result in any type. Then we started going for intervarietal hybridization with the same RL88 with weevil check. It's again a sativa type only, cultivar. Weevil check is a tolerant to weevil. So based on that, we have developed different populations. When we did this interspecific hybridization with Scutellata and other species, these were some of the types where we got male sterile, branched and exposed stigma. Like you can see here, the exposed stigma, you can see some of them. This is what I wanted to just tell. So to show those things, I have put these photographs. This can be used for developing some hybrids in future. So when we crossed with weevil check, this is the stem weevil, and this is the extent of damage you find. And this is commonly occurring in North India in the during the months of December to March, with peak in February. So this is causing a lot of damage, and it's one of the research priority area for ICR. So with that, the work was taken up in Lucerne at Dharwad, and we developed some population. You can see when these are some of the types we can the purple pigmentation and with small leaves, and they are all found to be weevil tolerant types. And this is a infested. This is a different population we have developed. Anand 2, that is again a popular variety, RL88. These are the two popular varieties where we crossed with weevil check and developed the popular. You can see the resistant plants here. This is again a resistant plant. Again with RL88, this is a population total with resistance we have developed. So we developed about 6 different populations, weevil tolerant populations, which are going to be contributed to national trials, AACRP or state level trials. You can see this is how. So after seeing all these things, what are the major problems we have seen in breeding? So breeding, one thing is it has got from self-fertility to self-sterility. That is one thing. Highly cross-pollinated, and you need insects for pollination, and there is self-incompatibility, and due to outcrossing, the combining ability of individual plants differ in a population because of interplant genetic variation. And again, that depends on the climate and pollinator. So it is very difficult to assess and select the plants with high combining ability. So the population approach only is, and of course this is seen in every crop that yield has got negative correlation with quality. And because of this inbreeding depression, the plant performance tends to decline with successive generation. First generation, second generation, even if you go with a population approach, sometimes because of this inbreeding depression, the performance will. So if I want to conclude my topic, the breeding is very slow. Improvement of lucerne, this methodology is very slow, and you don't. It is very difficult to practically find the variability in the population when you visit the field. Very difficult all because it's a population, it's a composite or sometimes synthetic. So they all look similar, and the progress is very slow. So we need to see all biotechnological and also molecular approaches, whatever we have just got aware of with this lecture a little bit. They should go with complementary, should be complementary with trading for further improvement of lucerne. So the thrust, as I told, for drought and cold and persistence, and also for genetic variability using this biochemical approach and biotechnological approach, and also disease, pest, stress, and cuscuta, a major parasite, cuscuta tolerant types. So with this I conclude my topic, and just these are some of the important varieties in lucerne which have been developed very recently, and the database of forage crop varieties is available in our All India Coordinated Forage Crops and Utilization site, and this database will give, it's updated and it gives total picture of all the varieties of fodder crops, total fodder crops. In that you can find the complete information, year of release, their characters, everything you can find from this. This I think my topic I am concluding with this. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for such a lovely presentation. Usually we have a question answer session at the end, but since we have already gone over time, there won't
Yeah.
be a question answer session. And also, since we have the valedictory preparations also, so please, sir, I would like to extend our thanks on behalf of NADCL as well as on behalf of IGFRI and on behalf of the participants. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, one and all.
Participants are supposed to join around 2:30 in the valedictory session. Thank you. We may all leave. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.